Today I am shooting with the Fujifilm GFX100 Mark II, but we are not in Toronto, we are in beautiful Banff, and specifically this is actually Lake Minnewanka, one of the most beautiful lakes around here. But I will tell you later on why I picked the 100 Mark II, and we're going to discuss the two lenses that I did pick for this trip. We're going to be taking some photos, we're going to talk about some photo tips and harsh light and sunrise and finding your spots. And also I do have the Fujifilm Xhalf in my pocket, which I will be giving to my sister because she will be testing it out. Now this was a very sudden trip to Banff, so this video is going to be a bit all over the place because I don't have much planned, but we will be going to some beautiful spots today and we'll be taking some beautiful photos. But first, I do want to talk about the gear that I do have with me today. So when I first planned to go to Banff with my sister and my friend, I was adamant that I want the Fujifilm GFX100 Mark II. So I got a nice loaner for a couple weeks that I can use for this trip. Now the reason that I did want the 100 Mark II is pretty obvious. The 102 megapixel sensor, medium format camera. These photos in an area like this are going to be absolutely crazy, and I do want the option to print them later on and keep them at the highest quality possible. Now, other than the GFX100 Mark II, I do have two GF lenses. The first one is the 32-64 f4, and the reason for that is I do want to get some nice wides and some nice wides of the landscape, but with the ability to zoom in a bit as well to get a nice bit of range. So the other lens that I do have with me is the 110mm f2, and this is pretty much the prime lens for longer focal lengths. It's a very long focal length, and the reason for that is because we do have a lot of mountains and a lot of mountain ranges that are pretty far away. I do want the 110 millimeters so I can basically compress the scene and get the mountains closer and get a closer look at the mountains themselves. Now, other than that, I do have my X-H2S, which I am recording with right now with a 16-55 and an ND. And I do have my trusty everyday carry, the X100 that I take with me everywhere, just to take some quick JPEGs to post on my story and to keep as memories for later on. So we are here at 2 Jacks Lake, and I will show you why I decided to get the 32-64. Now the 32-64 is one of the wider focal lengths on the GFX system. And obviously with the wider lens, you can pretty much get the entire landscape. But the issue is the mountain in the back over there, even though it does look a bit big, but it is pretty far away. And I do want to make it even larger and make that emphasis on scale. So I'm going to take two photos, one with the 32-64 and one with the 110mm, and we're going to compare the two photos right now. Now, the cool thing about having wide landscapes like this is if you just turn with me slowly to this side, we get pretty much a different view. And not just a different view, even the water kind of looks different. So we're going to take two photos as well towards this side. Now you can see the difference. And when it comes to shooting with the wide, my advice to you is if you do not have any subject in front of you or no one to post for you, the easiest thing you can do is get low to the ground, get some foreground, whether it's rocks or the water, and just try to get the whole view and have some nice foreground into the front. Because if you just take a photo of the lake by itself, it's going to be a bit boring, a bit bland. So to make it a bit interesting, you get low to the ground and you get some foreground. we are almost at the end of our first day. We are here at Surprise Corner, so the Fairmount Hotel is right back there. It is golden hour, and I am still using GFX, obviously. We're gonna take a couple photos with the 32-64, horizontal, vertical, and we are gonna take a few photos with the 110mm f2, and after that, we will be hitting up a sunset spot. So let's check these photos. One of the downsides of using the GFX100 II or any GFX camera is the fact that the lenses are very, very heavy. So the body is already heavy. You have two GFX lenses who are also super heavy. Put all that in a bag, add batteries, add gear, add tripods, add the X100 and the XH2S, which I'm using right now. It's kind of a recipe for disaster. There's a lot of walking in like Alberta and Banff, and you don't want to be carrying around all that much gear, but thankfully Banff makes everything very accessible. But now we're heading to Vermilion Lake to catch the sunset, and hopefully we make it in time. It is 8:50. Okay, so we have finally made it to Vermilion Lake, and as you can see, we have the nice sunset right here on the mountains, and this is going to be basically our subject. We got a nice reflection. It's not the most still reflection, like the water is kind of moving, which is not really a big deal, but we will have this here. This is our frame, and we have basically the mountain frame between these bushes and these trees. And basically you have a frame within a frame, you have a reflection, you have subjects on the pier as well, and the light on top of the mountain, and the composition is just absolutely insane. Now, you might want to shoot a bit underexposed with the GFX or any photo camera you're using, just because the light on the mountain is so bright. So underexposing will help you get the details in those mountains. And because the GFX, you can shoot 16-bit RAW, that means you can basically pull out a lot of information in the shadows, and you won't have any issues in post-processing afterwards. Now, another thing, I think I do prefer the 32-64 for most of the shots that I am taking here today and it's just because I feel like getting the wides, getting the full idea of how big these mountains are, I think the wide is doing a really good job at that, but also because our subjects are on the pier, they're not that far away. If I do use 110, it will basically block off the mountain, and I won't be able to see the peak of the mountain in the same photo, unless I'm like down in the water, which is impossible. So keep that in mind. Try to shoot underexposed if you have overblown highlights. So expose for the highlights and not for the shadows. And that way you can then pull out the shadow detail in post. So far in day one, the 32-64 has a slight edge on the 110 f2. I am not upset with my choices. I do feel like the 32-64 is doing a great job, but tomorrow we are going to another area up north, and I believe the 110 will show its strengths over there, but we're gonna have to wait and see until we get there. So let me just transition this to tomorrow. So it is 5:40 in the morning. We just woke up at like around 3 a.m. to get to this spot. This is Bow Lake. Now, when you want to get to a lake, you want to get super early in the morning so you can get this nice stillness and calmness. And just look at this. Look at this right here. Look how insane this looks right here. Now, with the GFX, I only have a 32-64, which is not wide enough. So my plan is to pretty much take a photo of this side, and this side, and then just stitch all three in post in Photoshop. Okay, so Bow Lake is done. We are gonna try to get to Lake Louise as fast as we can. It's a 30-minute drive, so we are gonna be a bit late, but it's worth the risk, so we're gonna see what we can get. So I do have to say this has been the best spot to end this video on, and using the GFX100 II, I do want to say the 32-64 has been, I want to say, a better use of a lens than the 110 f2. So if you are going on a trip, I highly recommend the 32-64 and maybe not the 110 because that is way too zoomed in. Maybe pick up the 80 f1.7. That would be a nice middle ground. But if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.